Hi, I'm Jason from StrataGames, and today I have a recap video for you of a trophy that I got playing White Weenies, this version that I've been playing with Martyr's Soul. I've been absolutely loving this deck. White Weenies in general has been a deck that I have enjoyed for a while, but I felt like there was just something missing to it, and I think that thing was Martyr's Soul. I played the deck in a video previously on the channel. You can check that out here, but in that video I got a 4-1. This I got a trophy, and I actually played one more league after that, and I got another 4-1. So currently I'm 13-2 with this version of the deck, losing only twice to elves both times, one of which I didn't have any sideboard cards for elves, and the second time I do now have one for that, and I just didn't happen to draw it in our third game. So I'll get to the sideboard in a second. But this is a pretty straightforward deck. White Weenies, we want to play a lot of creatures and then be able to beat down our opponent quickly. It's kind of mid-range aggro, although I will say my version of the deck is a little bit more aggro than the stock list. So we have Lunarch Veterans, Novice Inspectors, and Thraben Inspectors as our 1-drops to be able to get us card advantage, life gain. Lunarch Veteran comes back from the graveyard, and we just get to put guys down on the field early and start attacking from turn 1, ideally. Then we have Core Skyfishers, which can give us value by picking up any of our cards, usually an Inspector for an extra clue from that. It's also just a 2/3 flyer, which is a pretty nice body. We have Rafine's Informant, which is a 3/2 often for 2 mana that allows us to bin our Prismatic Strands, Battle Screeches, and even our Lunarch Veterans for more value throughout the game. Then the stock list of this deck usually plays 4 Militia Bugler, which is a fine value card. My main issue with it is it's 3 mana, which is very rigid in the curve. 1 and 2 mana is really what we want. We want to be playing a lot of those because sometimes we don't even get to 3 mana for a couple extra turns. So Buglers, especially if you have 2 or 3 of them in your hand, just gum up your hand and you can't really get them out. They do provide a good amount of value, and Vigilance is nice. The thing about this deck is that it's not just play a creature and it dies or whatever. We get a lot of value from our cards. We get clues, Lunarch Veteran comes back, Rafine's Informant essentially draws us a card if we bin a card that we get value from the graveyard. Core Skyfisher picks up a card. But I felt like we could, because we had all this other value, we could afford to have some of our creatures not be providing value and just providing more aggression. And that's what Martyr's Soul does. So it's a 3 mana 3/2 with Convoke, which means that we can play it for 0 mana if we have 3 creatures to tap for it. And when it enters, if you control no tapped lands, it gets 2+1/+1 counters, making it a 5/4. So if you have 3 creatures before you've cast any spells on a turn, you can tap all of them to cast the Martyr's Soul as a 5/4, which can be really helpful, but also just playing it on turn 2 or 3 as a free 3/2 is really powerful. If we start the game by playing an Inspector, turn 2 we play another Inspector, and if we're lucky, a 3rd or a Lunarch Veteran or something like that. We have 2 or 3 creatures, but with 1 planes up, we're able to cast the Martyr's Soul. We can have as much as 6 power on turn 2 that we're attacking with. And then on turn 3, we can be swinging for 6 and maybe even Guardian's Pledge that on 4 different bodies. So we can be swinging for a total of 14 damage. It can just absolutely blow people out. And I think the speed is definitely worth losing the little bit of advantage from the Militia Bugler. We also do have Battle Screeches to make a bunch of flyers. This is another way we can tap our creatures to generate more creatures. We have Prismatic Strands, which prevents all damage of... We have Prismatic Strands to help with burn matches and things like that, especially board wipes. It helps keep our creatures alive. I'm actually playing 4 of them instead of the usual 3. I decided only to go with 3 Martyr's Souls, 4 Prismatic Strands to try to keep our creatures alive a little bit more. Not sure how I feel about it. I might go back to 4 Martyr's Souls. This is what I was playing. We do also have 1 Steadfast Unicorn. The last version of this deck I played, I did still have 2 Militia Buglers in it. I just decided to cut them entirely, and I looked to J-Waves, one of the online players who almost exclusively plays White Weenie, and they had been playing a lot of Steadfast Unicorn, so I decided to give it a try, and it seems to be pretty decent. And then we also have Thraben Charm, which is just a nice removal spell, destroys enchantments, blows up graveyards, kind of does it all, and is main deckable, which is really nice. And then we have 19 lands, including 2 Idyllic Granges to add counters to our creatures, and a couple Eagles of the North if we happen to get a lot of mana, or it just turns into a Plains or an Idyllic Grange if we need that. And then for the sideboard, we have 4 main decks that we are attacking against. That is Kuldotha Red for Hollow prevents all damage from a spell and then gains life equal to the damage dealt that way. That means if they end the festivities, or maybe if we're against more of a control matchup and they breath weapon, this will gain us life equal to the damage that would be dealt to all of our creatures total. So not only is it a huge burst of life, which is great against mono red, but also it can keep one or more of our creatures alive. We also have a couple Arishan Clerics, which just gains us some life and is a 1/3, so blocks really nicely against Kuldotha. So those are our Kuldotha cards. Glee is another one. We have a full playset of Standard Bearer. We're just really bad against Glee otherwise. We have a little bit of removal, but it is conditional. It can blow up the enchantment, but if they have a Tamio safekeeping, we can't really do much about it. And we are trying to be fast enough that we can kill them before they actually are able to combo, but if we're not able to do that, just putting down a Standard Bearer can often win us the game right there. Elves is another one that we have problem with, as mentioned. Holy Light is a very expensive, like Suffocating Fumes or End the Festivities. -1/-1 to each non-white creature, and instant speed for 3 mana. It doesn't cycle or anything like that, so it's got issues, but every single time I play against Elves, it's just an absolute slog. We both put down tons of creatures, and then usually we can't attack into them enough. They have a Well-Wisher to gain a bunch of life, and eventually they get to like a Nyxborn Hydra or something, or an Ent, and can attack us for lethal. Now we do have enchantments removal and stuff like that to deal with it, but I found that playing a Holy Light just wins us the game, and Elves are popular enough right now that I think it's worth it. And then finally, Affinity, always one that's a little bit of a concern. I've actually been seeing a lot more Jund Wildfire or Affinity than Grixis Affinity, but whatever the variation is, Dust to Dust is going to be really good. Because they're not super prevalent right now, I'm only running 3 of them, but if Affinity is more of your concern, obviously you want to play 4 of them and maybe even some Revoke Existence. Then we had an extra slot. I think a Destroy Evil is fine as a way to remove a Terror, a Murmuring Mystic, and then just another enchantment removal spell. Let's jump into the games. Round 1 here, we get not a great hand. I think 3 lands is kind of our sweet spot. We always want a 1-drop if we can get it, and Guardian's Pledge is going to be nice with the Battle Screech, but definitely going to be a little bit later. Rafine's Informant, the only good thing to pitch is the Battle Screech, but then we won't have the creatures to use it on, so it's not a great hand, but I think we can keep it. It's always good to have as many cards as possible all the time, of course, but especially in White Weenies, every card matters very importantly. So we decide to keep this one. We're just going to play Plains and pass. And we are against mono red, it looks like. This is a deck that we're supposed to be pretty good against, even in our main deck. Of course, we have those 5 sideboard cards, but our main deck also has 4 Lunarch Veterans to gain us life, and 4 Prismatic Strands to prevent damage and things like that. So we should be set up to beat them, and that is going to be the goal. So we draw another Battle Screech, so I'm not going to feel too bad about pitching one here to a Rafine's Informant, which is nice. We draw a Plains, and we want to grow in our Informant so that it can kill this Lackey if it doesn't die to a Bolt. They Experimental Synth into a Great Furnace and have the Chain Lightning, so it does in fact die. So we draw another Plains, not looking great for us. We just have to play it and pass. Next turn, all we can do is play a Battle Screech. We can't even flash either of them back, and that's just 2 1/1s against what they have right here is not really where we want to be. And they have a Kuldotha Rebirth into a Clockwork Percussionist, already looking very rough for us, but let's see what we can do. We play the Battle Screech just to get a couple 1/1s down that we're going to be able to trade for their goblins. Not doing a lot. We take 6 down to 10. They bolt us. We draw a Plains, and we just concede right there. We can play a Martyr's Soul, which is going to trade with this Tomb Raider. We're going to take 3, and there's no way that they probably don't have us dead. So not a very good first game, I will admit. I will say if we had known we were against mono red, we would not have kept that hand. In the dark, I still think it's a fine mulligan, but it seemed like it could have been okay as well. If we were against more of a controlling deck, it wouldn't have been too bad, certainly. So sideboard, we bring in those 2 Arishan Clerics. We also bring in the 3 Hollows, and we also decided to bring in the Holy Lights, as they do make -1/-1 to all of your opponent's creatures, even though it is very expensive. Martyr's Soul, I will admit, is not very good in this matchup. It just dies to Bolt. If it's not dying to Bolt, we have to have tapped 3 of our creatures, and that's usually just not happening. And it's a 3-mana creature, although Convoke, that usually trades with like a Tomb Raider or something like that. So this is one of the main decks that I don't like Martyr's Soul in the deck for, but to be fair, I think Militia Bugler's not great in this matchup either, because it's a 3-mana spell that just dies to a Bolt. So either way, we probably would be deciding some of those out. And then we side out Thraben Charm. All it is a removal spell, and we don't really need a 2-mana removal spell that can is reliant on us having creatures. So we get a pretty good hand to deal with red, though. Lunarch Veterans is going to gain us a lot of life. Of course, Skyfisher is a nice blocker, although it dies to a bolt, of course. We have a hollow, too, so we're probably going to try to play a 1-drop here, of course, but then probably play our Lunarch Veteran and leave up our hollow so that we can try to keep them alive through like end the festivities and stuff like that. They're not having it. They Galvanic Blast our first veteran right off the bat, which is usually the right call for mono red. A single veteran can gain easily 5 to 10 life throughout the course of a game. And even if it's just 2 or 3, that's exactly what the Galvanic Blast is going to be dealing anyway. So almost always worth taking care of them. They have a Clockwork Percussionist and a Tomb Raider here, so they're going to swing. And we're just going to take it. We're going to gain the life back that we could have taken from the Clockwork Percussionist by playing this core Skyfisher. And then we're probably just going to pick up a Plains here so that we can leave our creatures to block, and we still have this hollow up in case they go for a bolt or something like that. They kick a Bushwhacker, which is totally fine. I'm going to trade for the Clockwork Percussionist now, and I'm going to eat the Bushwhacker, taking 3 damage. It's only 1 more damage, and we keep our core Skyfisher alive, which feels nice to us. Their their Percussionist finds another Percussionist. They go for a Galvanic Blast on our Skyfisher, and we're going to hollow that to keep the Skyfisher alive. Clearly seems like they don't have bolts to deal with it, so nice to have it around. And we could bring back a Lunarch Veteran here, but I decide to just leave up Prismatic Strands so that we're able to eat a bolt, block, and then when this is in the graveyard and we can flash it back, we can bring back our 2 veterans next turn, and they just scoop it up here. We were still at 17 life, and they're down to 3 cards, and we have a blocker they can't deal with, so I think it's fair that they scooped, if a bit premature. Our sideboard is pretty much perfect, so we're going to keep it, and this hand looks pretty good. We have just a lot of 1-drops. We do have Hollow for a little bit of life gain and damage prevention. We would love a Lunarch Veteran here, but 3 1-drops is also kind of where we want to be, and they don't even have a 1-drop, so we're already looking to be in a good spot. No 1-drop at all means that they don't have a single creature in their hand that they want to play for 1. So they don't have a Reckless Lackey, they don't have a Tomb Raider, they don't have a Clockwork Percussionist, they don't have a Voldaran Epicure. That's 16 different possible creatures that we just don't have to deal with because we know that they would have played them. They could still have a Bushwhacker, a Kuldotha, anything like that. So we're not out of the woods, but it's a great way to start. They synthesizer into another synthesizer, and they actually get a Tormod's Crypt from that they sided in, so they are able to play it for free. Not going to be too devastating against us. In this case, it worked out that they had a free spell, but generally probably just like a Lightning Bolt's going to be better. I know maybe they can get us with like a Lunarch Veteran or a Battle Screech. Prismatic Strands is the main one that they have to worry about, to be fair, but it's just not going to be that devastating to us. So we find a Lunarch Veteran, absolutely perfect. We play it, and we just pass. We want to hold up a hollow to keep this alive through and in the festivities or something like that. And I could attack for 1, but it's probably not worth it, especially because now is the turn where they could Kuldotha Rebirth and Bushwhacker. And they do start with a Kuldotha Rebirth into a Chain Lightning, and they go for the Chain Lightning on the veteran. We're going to hollow that. It gains us 3 life, but also keeps our veteran alive, which can gain us at least another 2 off what's in our hand. And we draw a Skyfisher. They're going to Galvanic Blast the veteran, so still worried about it. But it's now eaten 2 removal spells, which is pretty nice for us. We play the Inspector and the Skyfisher, and we're just going to pick up a land here. We want the blockers, again, in case they go for a Bushwhacker or something like that. They have another Kuldotha Rebirth into an End the Festivities, and they have the Bushwhacker, which is looking scary. 7 2-1s coming at us, but we are at 23 life right now with 3 blockers, so we're not in a terrible spot. I know they have the End the Festivities in exile, so I'm just going to block with the 2 Inspectors and then keep our core Skyfish, because if we block with it, it's going to die to the End the Festivities, and I'd rather have it just around to be able to block next turn. So we're down to 12 after they do cast the End the Festivities, but we're able to play a Steadfast Unicorn, bring back our Luminous Phantom, and pass the turn, and they apparently don't have anything else going for them because they scoop it up right there. So a nice, decisive victory against Mono Red. Here we have another 4-lander, but we do have the 1-drop and a removal spell in case they have a fast start or something like that, and then the Battle Screech with a creature that will be able to flash it back right away. So this hand looks fine. We're going to keep it for sure, especially because we're on the play and we get a 1-drop on turn 1. Anytime I'm playing a 1-drop on turn 1, I'm happy. I'm not saying that any hand that has a 1-drop is keepable, but that's definitely where you want to be at. And then we draw a 2-dropper Fiend's Informant, which is absolutely perfect. We draw Skyfisher, that's our 3rd creature, so we're going to bin the Battle Screech, knowing that if we want, we can probably flash it back next turn. And they played a Twisted Landscape, which means that they're probably on Jund Glee, or maybe Jund Wildfire, which is more of a mid-range version without a Brood Scale, version that I've been seeing a little bit around. That's a pretty sweet deck, I'll admit. They're going to crack it for a Swamp, Slagwood Bridge, and Duress us. They get to take our Thraben Charm, which is annoying. I will say, as soon as they play Duress, I assume that we're against Brood Scale combo, because most decks are not playing Duress main deck, unless if they're going for a combo and they're trying to be proactive, taking your reactive cards. So I'm already worried about the combo. The goal then is to just go as fast as possible. So we attack for 4, play a Skyfisher to pick up our Thraben Inspector, play it again. Now, that wasn't quite as fast as we could have. We could have also played the Veteran and instead bounced like a Plains. We would have 1 more damage, but I'm also almost out of cards already, and I would like to find another Thraben Charm or any interaction, but that's our main interaction. So I decide to go for the extra clue here, and we'll see if it pays off. They have a Cleansing Wildfire, so they get to ramp a little bit, and they have another bridge, so 4 lands here. We're going to crack a clue, because we draw Prismatic Strands, which doesn't really do anything in this matchup. If their combo win is like the outlet is Makeshift Munitions, it can kind of save us for a turn, but really not, because they can just kill us in our upkeep, and if we flash it back, they can kill us in response to that usually. So in any case, we're cracking a clue. We do find a Thraben Charm, so we're going to attack here for 6, play our Plains, and just pass, because we might as well hold up the little bit of interaction we have in case they have the combo here. They would need Brood Scale, Glee, and a way to kill a creature or make a spawn or something for 1 mana. But if they go for it, we will have at least 1 answer for it. They have an Evolution Witness instead, which I could kill, but is not the combo part that I'm that worried about, at least at the moment. So I just crack my clue on the end step, get another land. We're going to swing for just 2 here. I could swing a third of Fiend's Informant, but it's not really going to change the clock, especially if they block here. I could maybe goad them into blocking, to be fair, but I figure if I can just flash back this Battle Screech this turn, I can go for a win next turn, and it'll be a little bit harder for them to deal with it. So we're going to play the Veteran and flash back the Battle Screech, gaining a little bit of life, although that's pretty irrelevant, and we're going to pass the turn to them. They have nothing, and they Deadly Dispute the Evolution Witness, which is great for us. They do have a Cart Clan Shaman, and 3 of our creatures are on the ground. They cast a Toxin Analysis, and I decide to respond to the Toxin with the Prismatic Strands. Now, I could wait for them to have it and sacrifice something to it, but then they can just sacrifice 1 thing on top of the Prismatic Strands to deal damage to everything. Currently, we have a couple 2 toughness guys, and if I do it in response to the Toxin Analysis, they have to start sacking lands. So instead of sacking 1 clue and keeping all their lands, they have to sack 2 lands here if they want to board wipe us, which is amazing. And they just concede, seeing as they know that they're going to either have to sack 2 lands, putting them too far behind, or they're going to not do that and they're going to lose anyway. We saw the Duress and we saw the Evolution Witness, but I wasn't 100% sold that they were actually Brood Scale combo, because they were playing the Cart Clan Toxin Analysis combo, which makes sense against like mono red and stuff like that. But I just hadn't seen that much in the main deck, so I was trying to cope with both of these in the same deck. And so I ended up taking out an Inspector, a Martyr's Soul, and a Prismatic Strands, and I put in the 3 Dust to Dusts to deal with their lands, because I knew at the very least they had Wildfire and they had several artifact lands. I probably should have put in these Standard Bearers to hedge my bets and take out the Prismatic Strands, but I was worried that maybe they just had a bunch of Cart Clan Shamans and maybe even like Initiative because they're ramp. I was a little confused, not really sure what to do. So we don't have the Standard Bearers in here, which if they end up being Brood Scale combo is probably going to be detrimental. But that's what we do, and our hand looks pretty good here. No interaction, but a nice curve, so we're going to keep it. We draw another Plains. So we play a Veteran first. It doesn't really matter which one we start with because it's the same amount of damage, and I'm not expecting them to like have anything that's going to stop us really. So we just swing for 1 here, play a Fiend's Informant, and we draw another Plains. So I just ditch the Eagles. I'd rather the counter to try to go as quickly as possible, as opposed to cycling it for the Idyllic Range, which will get us a counter later. I might as well just have it now and not have to worry about it. They just slam down a Brood Scale, so we immediately know that they are in fact a Brood Scale combo, and wish that we had those standard bearers in the deck. We draw another Plains, so not going great for us, but we swing for 3 here, play a Thraben Inspector, and we play a Skyfisher as well. Picking the Inspector back up, I figure I have to find some removal or something, and they just scoop. They didn't have any black mana, which is what I'm assuming, that they just had a whole bunch of Deadly Disputes, maybe Glee combo even in hand, but they didn't have anything going on, so they scooped right there. I will say they probably only had a couple of turns to deal with stuff, since we had a decently aggressive start. These two would be able to keep attacking. But it was definitely a bit of a early concession. Round 3 here, we have an okay hand. We have a 1-drop, although it's the 1-drop we want more late game than the earlier value ones, but still, 1-drop, 2-drop, removal, protection, and battle screech. So we're doing okay here. Definitely want to find a 3rd land, but we're going to keep this one. And we're against Cawgates, it looks like. I will say, Cawgates I have not seen played in a month or two. It feels like these decks always disappear and then they pop right back up when I'm playing the deck that they're absolutely best against, because Cawgates is not an easy deck to beat as White Weenie, because they have Prismatic Strands, which prevents all of our damage. They have life gain from Sacred Cats and things like that, which can offset all of our damage. And really the only interaction we have is Thraben Charms to hit their creature or their graveyard, and Prismatic Strands to prevent some of their damage. But usually I think if they just have the right counter spells and things like that, they're going to come out on top in this match. So definitely seems like an uphill battle. But we draw our 3rd land as we were wanting and decide to, well, not decide. We slam down the Unicorn. It's our 1-drop. We're obviously going to do that. They have a Squawk right away, picking up 3 more of them. And we have our core Skyfisher. We pick up another Prismatic Strands, which could be okay. Play the Skyfisher, and we're going to pick up the Unicorn. It's not great, not value or anything like that, but we don't want to set ourselves back on a Plains here. They have a Modern Age and discard a Prismatic Strands, so that's already going to look rough. This is a nice blocker for just about everything that we have, and Strands is going to prevent if we go for like a big attack with a Guardian's Pledge or anything like that. We do draw a Thraben Inspector, so we play that in the Unicorn. They pitch a Squawk and a Lorien to find a beachfront. We get our Plains. We're going to Battle Screech here pre-combat so that we can attack with everything if they counter it. Or rather, we're doing it pre-combat so that if they counter it, we can just flash it right back. So we're doing that. We get our bird tokens, 2 of them instead of 4, but that's still okay. They get their Vector Glider going and have another Modern Age. These are going to be pretty good blockers against us, and they have a Sacred Cat, which is what I'm worrying about. We get a land and we decide just to Thraben Charm their Vector Glider. It's going to allow us to attack in for a bunch of damage here, but they have the counter spell, pretty effectively shutting us down. I could swing with the team and like lose an Inspector, or I could Prismatic Strands to keep one of our guys alive. It just doesn't really feel that worth it. So we decide to crack our clue, see if we hit a 1-drop, and since we don't, we just pass back to them. They discard another Sacred Cat, so those guys are going to be coming full force, and they embalm it. We get a Lunarch Veteran, which is okay. We decide to pump our team with the Steadfast Unicorn. We can attack with everything. We will probably lose like a bird token to a glider, but at least we'll get in for some damage. And they Thraben Charm our Unicorn. I will say this is when we would like to have a Prismatic Strands up. We're 1 mana short of that since we put 4 into the Unicorn. So maybe we should have waited until we had an extra land or had already used the Prismatic Strands, so we had it in the graveyard, because we knew that they could have a Thraben Charm here. But that's not going to work. It's going to die. We will be able to attack for a little bit of damage here. Thraben Inspector just bounces off the glider. I didn't want to lose a bird for just a couple of damage, so we just get in for 3 with the Skyfisher and pass back to them. They get their second Vector Glider, 2/3 flyers, pretty good here, and they just suit up their Sacred Cat with the Basilisk Gate, only +2/+2, but I will say, since we don't have a lot of removal in our deck, and luckily this is only a 3/3, we decide to just trade a couple of our birds for it. Not great, but it feels like it's going to only grow as they find more lands. They have another one to deal with, and the problem is that they're white creatures, so we can't do like a Prismatic Strands trick where we block and kill it and don't die to it because they're the same color as our creatures, so we're not going to be able to prevent their damage and not ours. Then we draw Guardian's Pledge, which obviously looks terrible since we just lost 2 of our creatures instead of just like 1 with, we could have blocked Skyfish or Thraben. But that's how it goes. We're going to play the Lunarch Veteran, and just pass. We could attack here, and if they go for like some blocks, we can Guardian's Pledge, kill a couple of their guys. That only works if they're foolish enough to just like single block these or even double block some of these. But it just didn't feel like it was going to be worth it. I'd rather hope to get like a Battle Screech, be able to make 4 more guys, and then have a Guardian's Pledge for when we do that. They have a Brainstorm here. They did pitch one of these Squadron Hawks earlier, and they're playing one right now off of the Brainstorm. They find another Squawk that they put back. They play a 3rd gate, so they're up to 3 for the Basilisk. We find another Veteran, but we're still looking for that Battle Screech. Really the main thing we're looking for here. And they just cast a Lorien Revealed up to 8 cards in hand, play another gate. Things are looking not great here. And we draw planes. Problem is when they draw a land, they are excited. It boosts their gates. And when we draw it, it's kind of a waste here. They Brainstorm and play their last Squadron Hawk, searching up none of them. What a waste. And then they Journey to Nowhere, take care of our Skyfisher, and start swinging in now that we've lost all of our flyers. We're just going to take 6 damage here, and we get another Veteran. We can at least offset a little bit of the damage with the life gain. And now they only have 1/1s back, so we're going to swing for 3 damage. It's not a lot, but if we can chip in for a little bit here and there, and then we're able to go for a Guardian's Pledge, even with just the 4 creatures we have, maybe we'll be able to sneak a win in. They Basilisk Gate up the Squadron Hawk, don't even go for the Sacred Cat, and swing with the team. I will say, we cannot forget that they have a Prismatic Strands in the graveyard from forever ago, which means that our Guardian's Pledge strategy is looking rough. They swing for a bunch here, and we have Prismatic Strands in hand. We might as well start using them. So I use it on white, prevent all that damage, but we take 4 from the Vector Gliders. We get a Martyr's Soul, might as well make it a 5/4. Tapping all of my Veterans for it. I lose a little bit of damage on them, but it doesn't really feel that important. We do hit with the Thraben Inspector, though, and then we'll have a 5/4 that can maybe start hitting in, or at least trade with, like, if they Basilisk Gate up a Sacred Cat or something. They exile our graveyard to take away the Prismatic Strands, hoping that they can hit in for a large amount here, which is a little annoying. We obviously have the second Prismatic Strands in hand, though, so we're going to do that and then take another 4 off of the blue creatures. They have a Modern Age, another 2/3 looming on the horizon, and they pass to us. We get another Guardian's Pledge. This would look great if they didn't have the Prismatic Strands in the graveyard. We decide to swing with the 4 creatures, leaving back 1 so we can Prismatic, and I Guardian's Pledge to force the Prismatic Strands, hoping that maybe next turn I can do the same thing, and if they don't have a Counterspell or Prismatic, we'll be able to get in for lethal. They discard a Spell Pierce and play a Citadel Gate, suiting up the Squadron Hawk yet again, swinging for a whole bunch. And we're going to prevent the damage from light sources again. They have the Counterspell, though, and that is lethal damage. So since this is a matchup that I haven't seen in quite a while, we don't have a sideboard specifically made for it. Luckily, we do have a couple cards that are just good against them. The Standard Bearers only make it so that they can be targeted by any spell or ability that can target any creature on the field. So their Basilisk Gates can only target the Standard Bearer if it's on the field. So we are able to side all of those in, which can negate their whole game plan. And we take out Novice Inspector, Rafine's Informant, and some of the Prismatic Strands. We leave one of them in because it can be helpful against their onslaught, especially their lifelinkers, but I feel like in general they're not going to be quite the way that we need to win. So we take those out. We also do get in the 1 Destroy Evil, which can take out an enchantment, so it's an extra way to get rid of their Modern Ages, and also it can hit a creature with toughness 4 or greater, which can be basically anything that's been Basilisk gated up. So we get an acceptable hand here. Eagles of the North definitely going to be operating as a second land, so we're going to keep this one, playing a Plains and just playing the Veteran out first. Might as well gain some life off of our Inspector that we're probably going to play next turn. They have a gate, and we draw a Standard Bearer right away, which is going to be pretty good. I will say playing it early could be a little risky because they can Thraben Charm to kill it, but that can be okay if we just use it as an aggressive creature. And we draw Martyr's Soul, so we decide to play it early and then immediately get the Martyr's Soul down, just so we can go as aggressive as possible. We are much more aggressive than they are. They're more of a control mid-range deck, and we're more of an aggro mid-range deck. So we definitely want to try to go under them. They have a Squadron Hawk here after a Brainstorm, but we draw our planes, which is absolutely fantastic. This is going to let us Guardian's Pledge right here if they go for a block, and they didn't even, so that means we just get in for more damage. They're down to 5 right away, and they're going to have to start using Prismatic Strands pretty immediately to be able to deal with it. They get a Sacred Cat, which can gain a little bit of life, and we do the math real quick. If I Thraben Charm the Sacred Cat, they can still block the Martyr's Soul with the Squadron Hawk. They only take 3, so they're not going to die. So I'd rather just leave back the Standard Bearer, because we don't want that to die, so that they can't Basilisk Gate. And we have this Battle Screech so that we're going to be able to make 4 more 1/1s and probably be able to kill them next turn. So they go for a Chump and a Trade. We're going to Battle Screech twice. And they need something really good to be able to deal with this here. That early Guardian's Pledge was absolutely fantastic. Often you want that to be your win con. Sometimes just using it when you have the mana to get in a huge burst of damage is totally fine. They have a Squadron Hawk and they embalm the Sacred Cat. And this time we do our math once again, realizing if we kill the Sacred Cat, they can chump the Martyr's Soul, but they're taking 6 damage so that it will be lethal. And if we didn't do that, they could chump the Martyr's Soul, block the Standard Bearer, and they're gaining a life off the Sacred Cat, so it's not lethal if we didn't do that. But we're able to take game 2. Sideboard is the same, and we're just hoping for a really fast start there. We don't want to get into the late game where the Standard Bearers are that relevant. We just want to kill them quickly, but if we happen to get there, the Standard Bearers will be nice. We get a totally fine hand here, 1-drop, 2-drop, with a Martyr's Soul that we're going to be able to fit in there somewhere, depending on how many other cheap creatures we draw, and a Guardian's Pledge to hopefully close out the game pretty quickly on turns, 4 or 5 if we're lucky. We draw planes, which is totally fine. It would be great if we draw a Battle Screech here, play the Inspector, and they're just going to leave up a counterspell. I'm going to swing for 1, and we draw another Guardian's Pledge, so could be pretty good. We're going to play the Skyfisher, and if they want to counter it, that's totally fine, and they do that indeed. And then they have a Squadron Hawk once again. Doesn't match up too well against our current creatures, so I'm okay with it. They pick up 2 of them. We get another planes, so we decide to just attack for 1 and play out the Martyr's Soul as a 3-mana 3/2. This is when Martyr's Soul is not at its best, obviously. A Militia Bugler would probably have been better in that specific situation. Vigilance can be nice, and obviously picking up an extra creature would have been great. Martyr's Soul has a downside. I'm not denying that by any means, but I think that the upside that we saw in just the last game makes it better in my mind. So sometimes it's not going to be a great card. Sometimes it's just going to be a 3-mana 3/2, but we need that right now, and so I don't think it's too bad. They're going to Brainstorm, do some shenanigans with their Squadron Hawks yet again, picking up another 2 of them, play a Gate and swing for 1 here, and we get that Battle Screech. So we're going to swing just for 3, play a Battle Screech, make 4 more creatures, and this is making the Guardian's Pledge look really good. So if we don't get counterspelled next turn, we have a good shot of hitting for a crap ton of damage. They have a Modern Age, and they do have counterspell mana up, so we might have to play around that, or maybe we'll just accept it. We're going to play Raffine's Informant just to see what we can draw. We get another Plains, we'll pitch that. Raffine's is small, but we definitely want our Guardian's Pledges, and we're going to swing with the whole team. They block a couple birds, and we're going to go for the Guardian's Pledge. If they counterspell it, that's totally fine. We still get a couple trades here, and we're still hitting for 6, so we're not in a bad spot either way. But obviously, if the Guardian's Pledge resolves, we're hitting for 14 and keep our 2 guys alive. They don't have the counterspell, they just have a Thraben Charm. So they're able to take out our Martyr's Soul, but that means that our 2 birds still eat their birds, and they go down to 6 either way. So that's definitely better for us than a counterspell. They do have a Journey to Nowhere here, taking out our Raffines and a Squadron Hawk and another Journey, taking out a bird, but they're tapped out and we have another Guardian's Pledge in hand, so we're going to be able to finish up the game right there. Round 4 here, we have an acceptable hand. The only thing missing from it is a 1-drop, but we have Raffine's Informant to bin either a Prismatic Strands or a Battle Screech, depending on who we're against. We have the Guardian's Pledge to go with the Battle Screech, and we have a Thraben Charm if we're against anything that we need to nuke the graveyard or just hit a creature early. So this one looks pretty good. They have an island, so obviously we're dealing with something blue, and we draw Thraben Inspector, which is exactly what we wanted to draw. They cycle an Ash Barrens and play a Godfarer's Faithful. So this is blue-white familiars, another deck that I don't see very much. And I'm not 100% sure how the matchup is in this case. I don't think as bad as the Cawgates matchup, and we were able to overcome that. But Familiars is just, in my opinion, a very hard deck to play against in general. They have a lot of interaction, tons of card draw, life gain, cost reduction. They just have everything that they could want. It's a pretty sweet and annoying deck, I will say. We get another Prismatic Strands, which I will say is pretty much a dead card in this matchup. Doesn't really do anything. They're not attacking until turn 57, so the Prismatic Strands really doesn't matter. But that's okay. We are going to play our Fiend's Informant and probably just ditch one of the strands, since I'd like to hardcast this Battle Screech. Whenever, I already alluded to this earlier, but whenever you have a Battle Screech, you want to make sure that you are getting a good amount of value from it, but there's nothing wrong with discarding it to a Fiend's Informant and missing those first two creatures, but you want to make sure that you can cast the Battle Screech within a reasonable period of time. I only have the two creatures on the field. I don't have any other creatures in my hand, so I don't want to discard the Battle Screech now, because what if I don't see another creature for 6 cards? Then it's just creatures that are sitting there not doing anything. But if I keep in hand, now whether I draw a land or a creature, I'm going to be able to play it, get those two creatures, and then also flash it back. So if I had a third creature here, I might have discarded it to get a little bit more speed and get those birds out quickly, but as is, I definitely want to keep it in hand. So they just cycle another Ash Barrens and pass back to us. We do have a Thraben Charm to destroy this Godfarer's Faithful if we want. I will say it's pretty annoying. It blocks our Fiend's Informant, and it gains them quite a bit of life. But the creatures that I'm much more worried about would be a Sunscape Familiar, the name of the deck, which reduces the cost of all of their blue spells, making it so that they have tons of blue 2-drops and 3-drops that are going to cost only 1 or 2. And also they have like Murmuring Mystics and Archaeomancers and Muldrifters, all these other terrifying cards that we're going to want to interact with. So we're going to keep the Thraben Charm for now. We do draw another Prismatic Strands. So as mentioned, not at all what we wanted. I just crack a clue because I'd like to find a 1-drop or something like that. Probably should have done it after I attacked, because I could have bluffed the Guardian's Pledge and they wouldn't block here, but I think that with them having 2 mana, they're probably going to block that either way. It's not a big deal. We'll attack with both. We might as well get in for the 1 damage that we can and pass to them. Not looking great for us, although they don't have a lot going for them either. They cycle a third Ash Barrens, trying to go for the whole playset, and just pass it right back to us again. Obviously, they could have a lot of interaction here, but they haven't been casting anything. It's a lot better than them playing like Sunscape Familiar into Seagate Oracle into Muldrifter or whatever. We draw another Plains. Now we're getting a little bit tired of the Plains, but it's not that big of a deal. The fourth one is very nice because we do get to Battle Screech here. I will say my brain got crossed here in some way, and I thought that I was able to attack with both of these creatures and then also cast the Battle Screech and flash it back. And that's not the case because I'm only going to have 2 untapped creatures. So 1 damage here was not worth this Battle Screech not being flashed back. So that was definitely a mistake on my part. I'm still going to cast it, of course, but I just don't have the other 2 birds right now. And they didn't counter it. I was worried that they would, but since they didn't, there really wasn't any reason that I should have attacked there. Especially because we could have gotten this Guardian's Pledge going a lot quicker. They missed their land drop here. Definitely not having a good time, seeing as they have nothing going on. I don't even know what they could have. I mean, they could have snaps, counter spells, whatever, but they're not using anything. So not 100% sure, but I'm not too upset about it. We get another Guardian's Pledge, and I'm just going to flash back the Battle Screech now, not making the mistake of not doing it again. Especially since we have these Guardian's Pledges, we really want to start attacking with the whole squad and then pumping them by +2/+2. We do get to also leave up Thraben Charm now in case they go for like a Muldrift or Ephemerate combo or something like that. So it's nice to have that up when you can. They have a Preordain, so they're going to gain a little bit of life and be able to set up their draw, maybe hit their next land drop or something. They Preordain again, and they go 1 top, 1 bottom, and then double top. They hit their land drop and just pass back to us. So no reason for us really to do anything here. And we draw another Thraben Charm, Nice interaction. We're gonna go probably just straight to combat here. Replay feature is definitely bugging out, blinking and stuff, but doesn't want to. There we go. We're swinging. So gonna swing with the whole team. We might Guardian's Pledge here, and if they block, I decide to go for it. If they counterspell or something, not a big deal, but if they don't, we're able to get in for a lot of damage. They ephemerate their Faithful, and realize I can Thraben Charm their Faithful in response or something here, but I just really don't care. The Faithful's getting them 2 life, it's blocking a little bit, it's not going to do too much, and we still get in for 15 damage, putting them to 4. So I'm just going to let that go and hold up the Thraben Charm for something else that they could play. They also get to rebound the Ephemerate, which puts it in their grave, which is nice, but like it doesn't get them any more value. So they do that, and then they go for an Archaeomancer, which can grab a card from their graveyard. They don't even go for the Ephemerate combo. They go for the Preordain to try to gain a little bit more life, but we just Thraben Charm their graveyard, blow the whole thing to hell, and they only have 1 blue mana, so Spell Pierce is the only thing I can think that they could have. Well, they could have it as spell. I don't know if they run that main deck, but we cast the Guardian's Pledge, and we're able to take the first game from them. This is another match that we basically don't have a sideboard against, but Prismatic Strands is going to be utterly useless in this match. So we take all of those out, and I put in 3 Standard Bearers, which attack at the very least, and also forces them to be snapped instead of like their own Mole Drifters and stuff like that, which can be pretty nice. I will say it doesn't interact with Ephemerate, because Ephemerate's only a creature you control, so they can't target the Standard Bearer with it, but at least the snap thing is a little bit of something going on. We also get the 1 Destroy Evil in, which can blow up their Modern Ages because they're enchantments, and if they have Murmuring Mystics in their main deck, it can blow up those as well. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Not a great sideboard, but also maybe the main deck will be just good enough. This hand looks really bad. We have 1 creature, which is way fewer than you want. Eagles does not count as a creature until turn 6. Don't count it in your opening hand. Martyr's Soul is the worst creature that we can start with. Nothing on turn 1 and 2. It's just really bad. So we're gonna mulligan that for sure. And we get this one that looks much better. We have 2 lands, 2 Skyfishers, Lunarch Veteran, and 2 Thraben Charms. We're gonna have to throw back one of the Thraben Charms in favor of keeping all of our creatures, but I think that's okay. We draw a Standard Bearer, which again probably isn't gonna make too much of a difference here, but we play our Veteran. They have the Mortuary Mire, and they're just gonna bounce it right back to hand. They're also on a mulligan, so they don't have to discard or anything like that. I guess they were on the play, so they wouldn't have to anyway. We attack with the Veteran and just play out a Skyfisher. We pick up our Veteran because we don't want to like set ourselves back with the Plains or anything like that. If we don't draw a land here, we'll probably Skyfisher, pick up the Plains, and play the Veteran, so we won't really lose the mana that turn. They play an island and just pass it back to us, and we don't find our Plains, although we could play an Informant to try to find it. We're going to attack for 2 here, and we decide just to go with the Skyfisher, and they have the counter spell, or rather the exclude, to draw a card, so that's pretty brutal. They have a Seagate Oracle, which is just a 1/3 that lets them get one of the top 2 cards of their deck. Not bad, certainly a good blocker. We're going to play their Fiend's Informant, make sure it's a 3/2 so it can attack past. Play a 3-man Inspector. We bin the Veteran so that it can come back from the graveyard. They have another Oracle here, Cycle Alorian and Preordain. And we draw another Veteran. Thraben Charm allows us to attack with the Fiend's Informant, and if they go for a double block, we can blow them out, destroy both of their creatures. So we're going to swing for 5 here. It looks like they go for the block, but then they decide against it. Down to 10. We're going to play the Veteran and just leave up the Thraben Charm in case they have like an Ephemerate on a Mole Drifter or something like that. They have the Sunscape Familiar and then a Seagate Oracle. So Sunscape Familiar is definitely a creature that's worth killing when you can. So we'll probably try to kill it at the end step here. Or we might just go with the Cracking of a Clue, trying to find Guardian's Pledge or something like that. The problem is with 1 island up, they can now have a 2-drop counterspell. So a Negate, a Prohibit, lose focus, anything like that. We are just going to crack that clue, and we find a Guardian's Pledge, which is, again, pretty good if they don't have the counterspell. It would need to be like a lose focus or negate. Prohibit's not going to do it, but they definitely could have one of those in the deck. And we get another Guardian's Pledge, so probably worth it to just go for an attack here. So we swing with the whole team, deciding that the casualties we're going to lose are not too devastating if they do have the counterspell. So we Guardian's Pledge, and they do in fact have the negate. So we still get to trade 1 here. Oh, they also have a Meeting of Minds before their creatures die to draw 2 cards. We lost 2 creatures and they lost 1. They have Guardians, they have a God of Pharaoh's Faithful, and then Preordain to draw some cards, gain life. Meeting of Minds, now they're really storming off, gaining life. This is where God of Pharaoh's is quite scary. We draw planes, we get to swing for 2 here with the Skyfisher, and just pass to them. I'm a little worried about what they can do with so much mana, so we leave up double Thraben Charm. I think we probably should have just played like a Standard Bearer or a Lunarch Veteran, at least one, because I don't really know what we do if they don't go for anything here. They play the Muldrifter, but they just hard cast it, probably wise, as opposed to going for an Evoke Ephemerate. They have plenty of mana, they don't need to really worry about it. And they swing with 2 Seagate Oracles. I get to block 1, so I just take 1 damage here. We think about casting something on the end step, but if they just have the Ephemerate in response to blowing up their creature, we have to double Thraben Charm, and then if they have the counterspell, we're just like really toast. We get a Martyr's Soul, but we don't even have 3 creatures to pump it out, so we just play the Luminous Phantom and pass. They go for the Ephemerate on the end step, and I try to kill it there. They have the Prohibit, and we just scoop it up there. They're getting way too much value. They already have 7 cards in hand. Then they're going to Ephemerate back up to 9, 10 for the turn. It's just, there's no way we're going to overcome this. So we just move on to the next game. And we get the triple Rafine's Informant, no lander, so we definitely have to mulligan that. And we get this hand, which is okay. Thraben, Charm, some interaction, Thraben Inspector, so we got the whole Thraben squad here. Battle Screech is going to be good. And we're definitely going to get rid of a plains here, but we got to keep this hand. So play our 1-drop and pass to them. They have an island, pass it back. We get a Novice Inspector, so would have liked a 2-drop, but decide to just use our mana efficiently, crack the Clue to try to get some more cards rather than playing the Inspector out here. I'm happy to try to go for the aggro play in the appropriate time, but a second 1-power creature is not going to give us enough aggro speed to kill them quickly enough, so I just go for the mana-efficient play of cracking the Clue. They bounce their land with an Azorius Chancery, making it so they have to discard here. And then we draw a Lunarch Veteran into a Martyr's Soul, and we have that Novice Inspector. So suddenly we are going to be able to hit, go more aggro here. We're still able to hit for 1 here because we have that plains, and then we're going to just run out the Martyr's Soul as a 1-mana 3/2 essentially. And then we have this Battle Screech, so we're able to go very wide very quickly. They have a Sunscape Familiar, and so they can leave up their Counterspell or something like that here, which is looking a little awkward. But we do have a Thraben Charm to try to pick them off, or maybe we'll just save it for something else. We draw a Core Skyfisher, which means we can just play that and pick up an Inspector, play it again, have some clues to go on the next turn. Or we could just pick up a plains, hold up our Thraben Charm, which would make it so that they can't like Muldrifter combo, which is definitely one of the things we're worried about here, is them going Muldrifter, Ephemerate, and then just gain way too much card advantage. We can't overcome it. So we decide to pick up the plains and just try to kill the Sunscape Familiar now. They have a snap for it, but not a counterspell, so they're going to have to replay it. They do untap their lands here, cycle and Ash Barrens, but they don't do anything else, and we're able to get in for 6 damage, so they're down to 12 already and have to replay their Sunscape, which they do, and they get down a Seagate Oracle, but they're tapped out once again. We draw a plains, so we're able to swing with the team except for the Veteran, Battle Screech, and flash it back. Now they need something really good, and they have a Murmuring Mystic and a Preordain, which is really good, but we draw a Thraben Charm, able to take care of the Mystic. We're going to crack a Clue first. We just draw plains, so we take out the Mystic and just swing with the entire team. They can block a Veteran here and a Bird. They can trade for a little bit of stuff, but they would be taking too much damage. They actually have to chump both the Skyfisher and the Martyr's Soul down to 1 life here. They have a second Familiar and an Archaeomancer. This is where I worry that maybe they can come back from this. Snap a Bird to get a bunch of mana. They evoke a Muldrifter, looking for an Ephemerate. They Meeting of Minds, and they don't find it. They concede here. They would have to have some way to survive this turn. Maybe a Prismatic Strands. I've seen some iterations, especially by Kalikai's running that. But if they don't have anything, they're going to die, and they do, in fact, scoop it up. Round 5 here, we have a pretty reasonable hand. A couple 1-drops with that Martyr's Soul, Core Skyfisher, and a Guardian's Pledge to finish it off. The Idyllic range might be a little awkward here, but we do have 1-drop that we can do if we need to. We just won't be able to get the Martyr's Soul out as quickly as we would like. But we're on the draw. Maybe we draw into another land. They have a Twisted Landscape, so once again, Brood Scale or Wildfire midrange. We get another Veteran, And we're just going to start with the first one in case the life gain matters. They have a Basking Brood scale, so it looks like it's a combo, and they could just combo really quickly here. They go on the offensive and just adapt their Brood scale up to a 3/3. So they could combo next turn, but unfortunately, unless we draw Thraben Charm, we just don't really have a say in the matter, and we don't. So we have a Thraben Inspector that we get to play, and then we get to play a Core Skyfisher, pick up the Clue token, and then convoke out the Martyr's Soul, swing for 1, just trying to get as much damage on the board as quickly as possible so we can kill them quicker than they can win. They duress us, take our Guardian's Pledge, and play a Ichor Wellspring, but they don't have the combo, so we're actually not dead at the moment. They just have the Brood Scale. So we're going to swing with the entire team, knowing that we're going to have a blocker here, because if they do happen to find the Glee, but they don't have an outlet for it, we want to have a blocker so that we're able to not die to them just having an infinitely big creature. So we play a Novice Inspector, play the Core Skyfisher, and just pick up the Inspector again. I do want a little bit of card advantage with clues to be able to find a removal spell if we need to, and they have the Glee, but they don't have a way to set off the Glee. They have to have a creature die before they're actually able to get a spawn to go off. So they pass to us. We crack our Clue here, get a Battle Screech, and we swing with Flyers and a creature that's big enough to trade with the Basking Brood scale. We don't want to swing with the Lunarch Veterans at this point because them dying will set off the Glee and they will get a 1/1. So we're going to hit them for 7, and they decline to block, going down to 5. We get to play that Novice Inspector and just pray that they don't find any way to kill a creature or do just about anything here. So they tap a whole bunch of their mana, and they play a Writhing Chrysalis, so they do have a way to go infinite with the Basking Brood scale, but they do not. They must have nothing in hand that they could play. They even have a treasure, so I don't see how they didn't try to go for it there, because if they have infinite mana, then they could go for, you know, if they have Ichor Wellsprings, if they have Deadly Disputes, whatever. I don't know what they were thinking there, but I will say they do have 1 reach creature now, so at 5 life, we actually can't kill them this turn. So we just have to Battle Screech, make enough creatures that we are going to be able to fly past the Chrysalis next turn, and hope once again that they don't kill us, even though they now have 2 creatures that can be infinitely large. So we just kind of expect to die here. They do realize that they have the combo, play an Ichor Wellspring, sack it to a Deadly Dispute, drawing a million now. They have an Evolution Witness with a Sadistic Glee as well, which means that they can get back every single permanent card from their graveyard as well, replay the Ichor Wellsprings, and get their landscape, keep drawing. They Cleansing Wildfire themselves, and then they play another Chrysalis, and then they just pass the turn. 3 creatures that are infinitely big. We get a Thraben Inspector. We draw a card just to see what we get, but we have lethal in the air. They only have 2 reachers. They can block 2 Skyfishers, but with our Idyllic Grange, buffing our bird token, we're able to hit them for 5 damage. They don't even have any colored mana, because all of their mana is in Eldrazi Spawn, so they don't even have any colored mana. So there's really nothing that we're that worried about. So we're able to take game 1. As far as sideboard, we know for a fact that they are a Brood Scale combo this time, so we're able to bring in all 4 of the standard bearers. We take out the 4 Prismatic Strands because they don't really do anything here, seeing as those creatures are all colorless. And we take out 1 Lunarch Veteran in favor of the Destroy Evil to be able to blow up one of their creatures that's very big, or another enchantment. Could be the Sadistic Glee or Makeshift Munitions or whatever. We don't bring in this Dust to Dust this time because I just want to be fast and go under them rather than dealing with that, especially if they end up, you know, not having a lot of bridges or anything on the field. They are a Wildfire deck. They're probably playing 8-ish bridges, but that's really the only thing that we want to exile with that. So this hand is not gonna work. Just 1 land is, you know, not great. It could be okay if we had like a second 1-drop or something like that. A second land would definitely make this playable with the Martyr Souls, but we're gonna have to ship that one for sure. And then we get this one, which is looking pretty good. Nice number of lands, Novice Inspector, Core Skyfisher, Martyr Soul. We're going to put back a Plains, not the Grange, because I think we can probably just draw another land to make sure it can buff up our creature, and we draw that Plains right away. So we play our Novice Inspector. They have a Landscape, and they're just going to pass to us, playing their second land. We swing for 1, and we're going to Skyfisher. This time, once again, picking up the clue, trying to go fast. And they just have all basics here. They don't play anything, and I'm definitely happy I didn't side in Dust to Dust when all we're seeing is basics. We're going to swing for 3 damage here, and I get the feeling that they might have a breath weapon, seeing as they have 3 mana. Maybe that's just that feeling. But they paused during that attack, realizing it would only kill the Inspector. They didn't go for it. But I'm going to play my Skyfisher, another creature that won't die to the breath weapon, and pick up the Inspector, play it again for that clue, and pass the turn. They have an Ichor Wellspring, and that's it. We range up our core Skyfisher, swing for 5 damage here, and I decide to Battle Screech. I did get that feeling that they have the breath weapon, but then I pretty much just brush it aside, decide we're going to go for the Battle Screech either way. Probably should have put this counter on the Novice Inspector if I still thought they had a breath weapon, because it could keep it alive. But I was a little bit too concerned, or more concerned, getting the extra damage in now. They get to Deadly Dispute their Wellspring on the end step, drawing a boatload of cards. And they have a Cleansing Wildfire with a bridge, getting an extra land here. And they're going to pass to us. We crack our clue, see if we draw Guardian's Pledge. We don't, so we play our planes and just swing with the team, getting in for what would be 10 damage here. They have a Snuff out for our Skyfisher, which would be lethal now because they actually dealt 1 extra damage than they would have taken. And then they have the breath weapon. So we did have that feeling, and we should have put the 1 counter on the Novice Inspector. So that was our mistake, our bad. But we were able to hit them for 2, down to 5 still, play our Novice Inspector, and rather than crack the clue, I just want to throw out this Martyr's Soul so we have lethal damage on them next turn. And they cycle a Twisted Landscape and play a bridge, and we crack our clue, but we have a Guardian's Pledge here, so if they have anything, any interaction, we might be able to just kill them right here. We swing with the team for 6. They have another breath weapon, but we have the Guardian's Pledge to be able to keep all of our creatures alive and hit them for overkill damage. So just like that, we're able to get a nice 5-0. Personally, I think this deck is pretty well positioned in the meta right now. Kuldotha has been just running rampant, and this deck generally does really well because it has a lot of blockers, it has life gain, and it has damage prevention. So generally, you're going to have a good matchup there. It does decently against Affinity, seeing as you have Dust to Dust in the sideboard, and you just have so many creatures that it's kind of hard for them to get a lot of value out of, like a Mirror Enforcer. If you block it with 2 Skyfishers, or even just a Skyfisher and an Informant or something like that, you're usually not you're usually trading one of your small creatures for one of their big creatures. So it has good matchups there. I also think it's decent against like Mono Blue Terror, because your Thraben Charms can blow up the graveyard to stave them off. You have a lot of chump blockers, and Prismatic Strands is absolutely phenomenal against Mono Blue Terror, because even if they countered it, you're able to flash it back. So I just think the deck's pretty well positioned and does well against a lot of the top decks right now. The main issue that it has is Glee combo, which is, to be fair, one of the biggest decks at the moment. I think that generally the 4 Standard Bearers are really good in the sideboard and kind of enough a lot of the time. That is why I have 4 Standard Bearers. A lot of decks are running only a couple of them. And I like the Standard Bearer over the Coalition Honor Guard, which is a nice one as well. But it's just 4 mana, which is really expensive, especially if you're on the draw. You might have lost by then already. I don't have any of them here, so I don't know why I'm looking them up. But yeah, so I prefer the Standard Bearer, and Holy Light has been kind of a must for me against Elves. In the last video that I did with White Weenie, we played against Elves, and it was a grindy matchup, and we ended up not winning that one. So yeah, I like the deck. Let me know what you think of Martyr's Soul. I think it's sweet. I do kind of like having 4 Prismatic Strands, although this league we kind of took them out every time against Glee and Familiars and stuff like that, but maybe we do just go with the 4 Martyr Souls. I'm not really sure what else to do with the deck, though. It feels really good. So, I don't know. I'll stop rambling. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.